challenge of very good consistency. But the challenge at the time was more how do we account for complete lack of consistency rather than how do we so much of the things that the operation can improve on
Do you want to do introduction?
I will do companion.
Yeah?
Yeah. You can do separate intro if you want.
No, I was just going to literally.
I am.
Okay.
I've got a paper. I'll catch up.
But yeah, basically, I met John at the National History Council.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
And I was supposed to see best sit down. More like
yeah, so good. Good.
Should we grab people? And loads of people just sitting over there.
Yeah.
I know, it's show thing time.
Yeah, they will come. Okay. Afternoon all, it's Thursday, it's 4 o'clock, it's time for
Show the thing.
See, it's always better when there's less people. Today, welcome John Lynch, who's going to teach us about unconscious bias. Could everyone welcome John, please? Over to you, John.
Thanks a lot. I'm trying to think of a place where I can stand, where I can both see the screen and talk to you as well. My name's John Lynch. I was a head teacher for 25 years at primary and junior schools in Croydon and in Brighton. I retired in 2013. I know I don't look old enough, but I did. And since then, I've been working with Brighton Local Authority on closing the gap for BAME pupils, and with Brighton University as a placement tutor. And we run 3 mentoring programs at Brighton University, one for BAME student teachers who are more likely to fail and drop out than their white counterparts, one for BAME nurses, we're just starting that one for male primary teachers because they weren't as good as female primary teachers, or they were struggling a bit more than female primary teachers. I've just finished a project where we mentored 66 Black and minority ethnic, Black Asian minority ethnic pupils in Sussex, 7 Sussex schools using 66 students from Brighton University. I'm also a facilitator for the National College of Teaching and Learning, and I do these sort of talks as well. So I'm really busy, although I've retired. My biggest challenge is to try and get through what I'm going to say to you in a half an hour, because I'm passionate and enthusiastic about this sort of stuff, and I tend to go on a bit, but I'll try not to. So, diversity, unconscious bias, and equality in schools. Thanks. Diversity aims to recognise and respect people's values and differences. It allows pupils to realise their full potential by promoting an inclusive culture for all staff and students. One of the other things I do is go into schools and do diversity walks. So we go in, we take members of the community, BAME people, Asian, Muslim, Black Caribbean, and we look at the school brochure, we look at the website, we wander around the school, we look at displays, we chat to the children about what it's like to be BAME in their school, and then we feed back to the school. It's a fantastic exercise because it helps the school see what life is like for a BAME pupil. And we also talk to the pupils themselves, and some of the things they say are really, really sad, I'm sad to say. And some of the things that they put up with, both from their teachers and from other pupils, and their experience in terms of not seeing positive role models, which I'll go on to, and not experiencing a curriculum which supports them in their development as BAME pupils. So it's important in school, diversity, because of what's happening outside in society. I only have to mention two things, for example, Donald Trump and Brexit. Donald Trump. Both those things affect BAME people in today's Britain. I was born and brought up at a time when it was openly okay to be racist, when there were television programs in which people were racist, and it was thought to be funny till death do us part, and things that you probably, none of you would remember that, would you know? It was deemed to be funny and okay to be racist, and then it was made against the law. My son plays football, and the first time I went to a football match, I sat there like this, waiting for the first racist comment, and there weren't any, because it was against the law. It wasn't allowed anymore. It's fantastic. But things are changing because of Brexit, because of the talk in newspapers, because of the media about immigration. Things in this country are changing for BAME people. That's what I think.
And sugar influences.
And sugar, absolutely, absolutely. Penny Young, Chief Executive of the National Centre for Social Research, said in an increasingly diverse and multicultural country, we might expect people to be more relaxed about what it means to be British, and yet the trend is going in the opposite direction. Don't start clicking yet.
Sorry.
Yeah, it's all right, it's fine, it's fine. I'm now about to display my expertise at digital technology, which is a great place to do it, isn't it? One of the things that, a couple of things that happen with us, with BME people, and with children in schools is the media. The media, since doing the diversity walks, I've really discovered that the media has a huge impact on what children feel about themselves, about what their expectations are, about what their teachers expect of them. Because in the evening, they're seeing things on the media, they're hearing things, they're reading things in the newspaper that puts them in a certain place in society. And as well as that, there are films and plays that they see on television that have a huge influence on them. This is a list of films in which the black character is either the first to be killed or the only one to be killed. And when you see the list, you'll see that it's quite extensive. So there's the black character, first to be killed, or the only one to be killed. Thank you. If you could stop there for me. Just a couple of examples. Kill Bill Volume 1 was a black woman in front of her own child. Epic is a cartoon. And I started watching it with my granddaughter. And the Queen, it was about a girl who'd been shrunk and gone into the forest. Anybody seen Epic, the cartoon? Yeah, Queen been shrunk, going into the forest. And then the girl was shrunk, went into the forest. The Queen was voiced by Beyonce. And I thought, fantastic. That's a great role model to have in a film, in a cartoon, somebody voiced by Beyonce, the Queen. Within 5 minutes, she was killed. And it was just like these other films carry on, where that happens to black characters. In this one, Passengers, that was the film where they were going to another planet to repopulate it for Earth, and he was the only one that woke up, and he couldn't bear it, so he woke up another female companion, and then another passenger woke up, and he was black, and within 20 minutes of the film, he died. So he was the only character in that. It's quite common, and kids are really astute, they're intelligent, and they understand what's going on. It stems from years ago in Hollywood, when they had an important character, usually a white character, but they wanted somebody to die in the film, and it was either a woman or somebody who was an ethnic minority, and it still happens now. Even those actors, if you say to me, oh, like Denzel Washington, and who's the guy that plays in Luther? Idris Elba, yeah. They will often die in a sacrificial manner so that somebody or a group of white people in the film will survive. Don't take my word for it, have a look. Now, this is where my digital expertise comes in, because I started fiddling about, trying to make things come in and that. But there again, I thought it still has a bit of an impact if it happens. And you see those films again and again and again. Something distracting me. So apart from what we see on television and in the films, there's also the media. And in some countries, it's just all right now. In some countries, it's all right to be far right. The far right is rising in Europe, and it's okay to put out posters like this. This is from Switzerland, and as you can see, that says, "Finally create security, expulsion of foreign criminals," and it's a white sheep kicking a black sheep out of the country. I find that shocking, but it's okay now to do that sort of thing, and it's okay for that sort of thing to be seen. You would think, wouldn't you, that it wouldn't happen in this country? But this is going on a basis in the media. All these headlines about invasion, about infestation, about people coming into the country and taking our jobs and that sort of thing. This one, there's one there which says 1 in 5 Britons will be ethnics. My best friend Paul, I've known for 35 years, 36 years. If we go away on a golfing trip, I always room with him. He's just, I love him to bits. He's my great mate. We were on the golf course the other day, and he said, "You know, it's in 1 in 5 Britons will be ethnics." He's white, by the way. And I just said, "Well, what's wrong with that, Paul?" Well, I don't know. But it's constant. These messages are constant through the media, through film, that we are, the AME people, immigrants, a problem, second-class citizens taking our jobs, that sort of thing. Thanks. Oh, sorry, quick video.
Quick video.
We need to know that we are black and we are. The country shows that we used to watch when we were little, it was all American, it was all, you know, when before your time, the Cosby shows, a different world, and then it was Fresh Prince, and there was My Wife and Kids, and there's no British equivalent. So why do we, you know, it's like, it is very much as if we don't exist.
When programs like that do, they have black characters on there, they're always caricatures of what, you know, people in high places think Black Britain is. And I think that's a problem. We're not caricatures, we're all people with real feelings, we're complex, we're multifaceted, just like our white and Asian counterparts. Not everybody's got a problem with their papers. And not every young black boy that's under 30 carries a gun.
Thanks, Tony.
I mean, there are loads of misconceptions, too many to list. A lot of people say,
there is more to that, but I think you generally get the message. It's interesting your reaction to that mother who saw her son. That was her own unconscious bias, and it's happened to me. Twice it's happened to me in New York. I was on an educational exchange in New York, walking through Brooklyn after a great night out with a group of Brooklyn teachers, and there were two black guys walking toward. I was walking along with the Irish head teacher, and the two black guys walking towards us in hoodies, and I physically felt myself move towards the end of the edge of the pavement as they were walking towards us. And as they came towards us, Peter said, "Hey, how you doing?" And they went, "Hey, how you doing?" And I thought, "God, John, what are you doing? What are you thinking?" And recently, last year or the year before, I was in Bryant Park, staying at Bryant Park Hotel. Going back to the hotel with my wife, and in the corner of the park, there was a huge black bloke, massive black bloke with a hoodie down and dreads. I remember thinking, well, there's something going on there. We'll just wander around. And we didn't wander around. My wife pushed me and made us walk through, and he was waiting his turn to play chess. That was my own unconscious bias. And this is what happens, you know, bring us back to school children and what they experience and understand when they're in school. It's incredible. The media influence is incredibly strong. And every time, you know, all the things I'm saying, I try and think back to children at school. This is just things that have happened to me personally, and I feel this is media influence. Media influence. I play golf, and I work for the university. These are some of the things that have happened to me personally, and I think this is media influence. Thank you. So we were talking about the Olympics. The upcoming Olympics, and one of the people I was talking to is the Jamaicans are going to win everything because they're all on drugs. I was playing golf with a guy, and I was trying to explain the work that I was doing, and he said, yeah, but you're not a typical black man, John. I said, well, I'm typical like my brother who won the World Cup with the England Disability Football Learning Side. I'm typical like my friend Michael, who's a policeman. I'm typical like my other friend who runs his own coaching business. I'm typical. But his idea of what was a typical black man was media-based. Again, on the golf course, there's a guy who's Greek Cypriot, and he's the marshal of the golf course. He's also a European poker champion. Really intelligent, bright man. We were talking to him, and he didn't hear us quite properly. And one of the guys said, "That's because he's foreign. He doesn't understand. He lives in this country. He's got a business in this country." I was playing golf in a place called Pycombe, lovely golf course, and it was just after Brexit, and we were playing in a group of four, me with somebody I knew and then two people I didn't know, and they were talking about Brexit, and one of them said this country's going to be overrun with bloody Muslims, you know. And I'm very quiet, I don't really say it, but I did at that point. I said, look, you know, there are some children that I work with that'd be really upset if they heard you say that. He went very quiet. We had to play golf together for 4 hours. It was quite difficult. But when we got back in, the bloke with him said, "I'm really sorry about that. You should know better. He's a teacher." Which is incredible, isn't it? Yeah, this is a placement student at Brighton University on a placement. Went to the placement, was told you can't work in this area because you people steal things. This is Sussex recently. That's why we do the mentoring programs for students. Nobody would know this. This is my wife's school. In my wife's school, a teacher was off, and they didn't know why she was off because she'd kept her pregnancy quiet. And the head teacher said, "Is it because the baby's black?" The head of the school, with black kids in his school. I worked in a school recently, and I went into the school mentoring BME children, and I said to my colleague, I don't want to go back in that school because the whole culture and atmosphere of the school promoted anger, bullying, confrontation, and when that happens for BME pupils and any minorities, it's really difficult. Thanks. Home Office knife crime. I'm going through really quickly, and I do apologise. This was sent to me by, I'm a member of the Race Association group at Sussex Police. This was sent to me, could I comment on it? And the site itself, for me, just says to you that black people are involved in knife crime. And in London, I don't know the statistics, but the statistics would probably say that black youths are involved in knife crime. But this was going out in Sussex, where the main perpetrators of knife crime are working class white. But it was going out to Sussex police officers, many of whom would never have had any contact with a BME person until they're in an arrest or confrontational situation. In schools, it's so important that there are role models in schools. I was the only black head teacher in Croydon. I was telephoned by the press when I was appointed head teacher. They said, "Well, do you want to comment on it?" And I said, "Well, I'd like there to be a point in time when it's not a newsworthy item." I was the only black head teacher in Brighton for 13 years, and it's really difficult to get black students to come down from London to stay in Brighton and teach in Brighton or Sussex, where there's a growing BAME population. They themselves come down to Sussex, they don't feel comfortable, they go back at the weekends, they go back in the evening, because we all want to be with people that are like us, and it's understandable. But that means that black children, BAME children, Asian children, are not seeing any teachers in hijabs, they're not seeing BAME teachers. Even in London, I would argue that if there are BME teachers, then when they get to the senior leadership, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter, which is what you see when you go to hotels abroad. So they're not seeing role models. When they do see, and this is what children tell us, when they go to school, this is what they see. BME people doing these sorts of jobs, cleaning, cooking, and not in the senior management, as well as displays that don't say anything about their history, their culture, or anything like that. So if I go into schools and I say to BAME children in schools, when we mentor, I meet with them specifically, just me, and I meet with them and talk to them about mentoring, being mentored by somebody that's like them. I say to them, "Who's that? Who's that?"
You say, "Oh,
Did you know that?
Stormzy.
Stormzy. Now you know, listen to some what time. And I say to them, "Who are these people below? Anybody know who that is?"
Is that Frederick Douglass?
No.
Oh.
Get out.
Alexander Dumas.
Alexander Dumas, thank you very much. Are you French? Oh, okay. Alexander Dumas, who wrote Three Musketeers, Man in the Iron Mask, all those books that have been made to famous films. He wasn't celebrated. He was, what's the word when you dig someone up?
Exhumed.
Exhumed. He was exhumed because a few years ago it was recognised that he did make a huge contribution to French literature, but because he was BME, it was suppressed. That's Baroness
Scotland? No.
Valerie Amos.
Valerie.
I think she's now head of School of African Studies at London University, but she's also been in the Commons and the UN. Anybody know? Somebody, you may have read some of her books. Sadie Smith. Yeah. And this one I found, this was fantastic for me to see. That's Flight Lieutenant Trevor Edwards, an East End boy who joined the RAF and became a pilot and now is a commercial pilot. But the thing is that kids don't know these people. They just don't know them. BME kids don't know them. They only know people who are white, usually white males who are famous. But you know, if you ask them, a famous black politician, I said to my kids in school, "Name me somebody famous who's black," and they all put their hands up. And then I said, "Name me somebody who's famous who's black and who's not in sport or music," and they all put their hands down. But they came in over the next week and they told me people, which was great. I got this from your Twitter account. It's exactly the same for women. I don't know any of those women. I know about these because I saw the film, Hidden Figures. But I don't know their names. I'm ashamed that I don't, but I should do. But this is unconscious bias. This is what happens with kids over time. And those kids are growing up to take part in our society. If I was still in school, I would be showing them things like this, because the images and ideas that we see about Muslim women nowadays are all negative. I was watching a news program, and they were talking to Muslim governors at a school about whether they were promoting terrorism and that sort of thing. And they gave a brilliant explanation of why they weren't and why their school was like that. And I thought that was fantastic. And the reporter was standing talking to them. And then he turned to the camera and said, "We're now going to Pakistan where there's been a terrorist attack," making an immediate association with those women and terrorism, which is what the media does. These are just images from adverts, which I saw again when I was in New York, which I don't tend to see much in this country. You see representations of Muslims which associate them with bad things, not necessarily good things. I showed these to students. "Who are they?" I said, to BAME students. And they said they're athletes, they're basketball players. They're a football team. Anybody guess who they are?
Cambridge.
Absolutely. You see the Oxford or Cambridge, be it Afro-Caribbean Society, and there's the girls at either Oxford or Cambridge, the same thing. We just don't see enough of that sort of thing. So this means that black children themselves think their skin colour will make it harder to achieve in the future. Figure compares with 2% of white children. Black kids are less likely to want to be doctors and scientists. Black children are the most concerned about how their teachers view them and feel that their teachers wouldn't describe them as clever. I've got to go a bit faster now. So we are, yes, to counteract, to support BAME children, we run mentoring program. When I worked and showed Tammy this presentation, this wasn't in it, but this is something that we do to support BME children. And it's not BME children who are naughty, it's just any BME children. Some of them are incredibly talented, very intelligent, very bright. But to have a mentor that is like them, the impact of this program has been fantastic. I said to you, I've been ahead for 25 years. This is the best thing that I've ever done, best thing I've ever been involved in. It's emotional, it really is. The objectives are to support BME pupils in Year 9 and 11 using BME students at the university. Thanks, Tammy. This is what some of the pupils said. Sorry. I'll let you read that yourself. Somebody put their hand up when they're finished. This is the outcome for the mentors and mentors themselves. It was fantastic to see them blossom and grow because they were mentoring young children and having that opportunity. So many of them said, "I wish I could have had this opportunity." This is from an evaluator. This was just recently. It's great because we can send that to the people who funded us. Senior leadership at the school. I said to you about that one school I didn't want to go into, but there are other schools that we've been into and we've found them to be absolutely fantastic in supporting all minorities in their school. And we're having a conference sometime in September to get everybody together to say this is good practice to support your minorities and those with protected characteristics. The university itself, everybody benefited from this program. So that enthusiastic people, which I've seen so many times in my career, the danger is that what their experience in life and their experience even in schools from some teachers who suffer, who have unconscious bias themselves, may turn them out to be like that. But we don't want them to be. That's my daughter. That's my granddaughter. I've said to my wife already that I'm worried that my granddaughter won't like me when she grows up. She's absolutely, when she comes around my house, she's all over me like a rash. We just play all the time. But I am worried about what she's going to understand about colour as she grows up. It's sad, but I am worried, and this is why.
The black doll. And which one is the white doll? Which doll is the pretty doll? Which doll is the nice doll? Which doll is the bad doll? Which doll is the nice doll? And which doll is the bad doll? And why is that doll pretty?
Because she's white and you have 2 eyes.
And which doll is the ugly doll? Why is that doll ugly?
Because he's black.
And which doll looks most like you?
Like me.
Yeah, which one looks like you?
And that one.
Yeah, that really shocked me when I first saw it. Those children are very, very, very young, and there are other videos of Puerto Rican children with American children, all of different ages, and they all are developing the same opinions about what colour means and what it means if you're a particular colour. So that's why I think it's really important to understand diversity, to promote diversity in schools, particularly amongst staff, to have unconscious bias training in all institutions so that we're all really aware of what we feel inside. Remember I said about what my unconscious biases are, and we have to get them out into the workplace, into schools, so that places become more equal, so that we have an understanding, so that we acknowledge our biases, and that nobody is disadvantaged because of where they come from or what their cultural background is, as well as all the other protected characteristics. There is another video about unconscious bias, but I'm sure, I hope that you've got the idea of what I've been trying to talk about. I was talking to some third-year PE students, some of whom might be coming to work in London, and I showed them pictures and videos of some really successful black kids, because they had the idea of coming to London and working in schools that were full of ill discipline, full of violence, full of knife crime. But I showed them students who were A-star students, students who are going to Oxford University, students who are doing really successful 10 GCSEs and so on and so forth, just to get them to understand, because their media background, what they'd understood from their life in society, was that they were going to come across problems and trouble, and that isn't the case. I'm sorry that it's been such a rush through. I don't know whether there's any opportunity for any questions.
Sure. But first of all, thanks, John. We do 2 minutes of questions, and I'm sure John will stay around for a little bit afterwards if there's any further questions. Any questions?
Yeah. You know, in London, we like to think of ourselves as being very inclusive. What's your view on that? Is it different here from the rest of the country?
Well, I mean, the reason that I'm doing this work in Sussex is because it's so needed, because it just aren't in schools, you know, kids just aren't seeing it. I mean, I can look around here and see that you've got a diverse team here. And my brother is the governor of a school in Barking, and it's a much more diverse staff. But I was at a meeting in Bolton the other day called BAME Ed, which is about trying to get more BAME teachers in schools. And certainly in the school that my brother is a chair of governors, there are BAME people on the staff, but when you get to the senior leadership, it just stops. And I don't know what the statistics are now, but in 20,000 primary schools when I was a head, there were about 20 or so black head teachers. It just doesn't reflect society at all. So even in London, I think, yeah, it's much better in London, much better. You know, if I come up to Crawley, it's better when you go to schools in Crawley. When I go into London, I feel more comfortable. But there are areas of Sussex where it's a real issue, a real problem.
Oh, Dick?
So I get the examples that you've provided us with today. First of all, thank you for coming in. I found it really inspirational just hearing about it. And it's just a really good reminder to myself as well of my own unconscious bias. And I'm just thinking that how can we also translate that to workplaces? Or, you know, we have unconscious bias training, we have a great department here actually with diversity is celebrated and championed. But I'm just wondering, like, what programs or initiatives, or what have you observed about, like, in organisations or companies in London or the UK?
I haven't, to be honest. I've only, you know, as I said, the reason that I do this work and I'm so passionate about it is because I live in an area that's predominantly white, and it's so apparent in those areas where those difficulties are. I went to college in those areas. You know, when I was at college, I was told that the college was asking landladies whether they would accept me as a resident in the house. So you know, it's a difficult area. But I think in an organisation like this, which is diverse as far as I can see, in which you say that you have unconscious bias training, I think you should constantly challenge yourself. I think whatever you do, whatever policies you bring in, there should be somebody that is saying, what are the issues here for BME people? Not only BME, because there are other protected characteristics, but there should be somebody that is looking constantly about what is happening within your organisation. And if you think your organisation has got it right, then you should be promoting what you do within other government organisations as well.
Are there any tools that you recommend online, the various kind of assessments or unconscious bias test tools that you can take, which you have to click, and then it tells you at the end? Are there any that you recommend that people should do?
I can't recommend anyone. I can recommend a person, which is Dr. Robert Livingston, who's at Harvard University. If you could get him to come and speak at the ministry, he's very expensive, but he's just incredible. He's helped Airbnb because Airbnb realised that some of their, what would you call them, the people who were renting out their houses were refusing to rent them out to certain types of people. So he's developed policy for Airbnb, but he does a brilliant talk about unconscious bias, which is really, really interesting. It starts with what women have to experience in the workplace, how women have to act in order to be promoted, how women have to look in order to be promoted. For instance, Margaret Thatcher was trained to act in that way, to be more like a man, to be more masculine. So yeah, I mean, Dr. Robert Livingston, but there's so much now online about unconscious bias that it starts to get to the stage where people are arguing against unconscious bias. So it's just a case of looking.
What advice would you give to parents of young mixed-race children?
Well, in Brighton, are you a parent of a mixed-race child? In Brighton, because we look at statistics like all local authorities and schools do, the BME kids are caught up over the past 3 years. The group is still failing or still struggling are mixed-race kids. And I feel it's about identity. And my kids are mixed-race. And we just never spoke about that sort of thing. It wasn't particularly an issue. They only told us when they were older what was happening to them in school, but they're very successful. My daughter's a primary school teacher. My son's a professional footballer. They're really successful. It wasn't an issue to us. I think it's hard being a parent of mixed race kids and trying to work out what to say to them. But we supported them in whatever they wanted to do, whatever avenue they wanted to go. My son is very black, into hip hop and rap and Muhammad Ali, and my daughters, not so much, but we loved them to bits and supported them in whatever. Where I've seen things go wrong is where parents have just been on top of it all the time, giving them things about identity. A parent said to me with a mixed race child, I've spoken to them about the Holocaust. So I think just love and support and an understanding that they're going to have issues in school, that they'll come home to you and hopefully come home to you and talk about it.
So be ready for it, perhaps, rather than starting the conversation.
Definitely. And I think, when I know our kids, because my wife was a teacher, I was a head teacher, I was successful in the local community, so they had people to look up to. They had two role models to look up to. So yeah, be ready for it.
Thanks very much. Before we all dash off, Jack's asked for 2 minutes, so
Yeah.
if I could.
Thank you very much. Yeah, so that was amazing, thank you, John. I'm going to change the tone slightly because we have to say goodbye to 2 of our brightest analytical minds in the department. One of whom's up on the screen. Alice isn't leaving, by the way. Everyone's happy about that, that's good. But Oliver and Michael, please come to the front. Everyone give them a clap. And it is our job to now shame them, make them feel guilty, so that they buy us as many drinks as possible in the pub later. Wow. Of pure guilt for leaving us at this time. So I've just prepared a little presentation of your finest moments in the MJ. I'm going to start with you, Oliver, because I think writes itself in a way. The pictures tell a story.
Spreadsheets and stuff, which I've
saved that.
Okay.
This is Oliver, early on in his MJ journey, bright, happy, and then something happened. He's never been able to explain what happened. There was a marked change in his appearance one day. I think
part of the movie. I'll spot on the movie.
I think he may well be going off to Hollywood. Things got worse. Things got a lot worse actually, and no one can explain this. And certainly no one can explain this. This is where we're at now. But the real nail in the coffin for Oliver was show the thing where he did accidentally show his thing. After that, and a general downward trajectory, he, at that point, had to leave. But no, I'm joking. Oliver's been a part of UCPD since for like about a year now. He's worked on some really high priority things. Pretty much everything Oliver touches, he's turned to gold and injected some analysis and real logic and thought into it. And it's been really, really valuable. And we will really be really sad to see him go. So thank you, Oliver. Give Oliver a little round of applause. Shame Michael. So Michael's not actually dead. There's this a bit like an obituary photo. It's not really.
Is that my epitaph?
Yeah, that's my Michael. But there's a reason for this. This picture I've chosen is because this is the only picture that's publicly available of Michael. Michael keeps quite a kind of a low profile publicly, and that's because he's a career animal. We can't have any poor taste photos out there. So if anyone can get any tonight, that would be great. My first introduction to Michael in the department was Alejandro came to me on the 10th floor and said, "Oi, Jack," in the normal Alejandro kind of way. "What's the sitch? There's another Jack on the 11th floor." Talking about diversity, well, I was starting to get a bit worried that I was actually being upstaged by a better model, and this kind of proves it a little bit. The other day, Sam asked for some lines on finances, and I said, "Oh yeah, this is the kind of thing that I think the team would want to ask Mike Driver. Do we have enough money to meet MJ's mission?" This is what Michael said. "In spending review 15, we modeled 20, 40, 60% cuts. What kind of increase scenarios are we modeling for this time around?" This is Michael. And so yeah, I was definitely upstaged. Another way it's upstaged is that Michael is actually a new father. He rarely shows it. Often he's at the pub. I don't think Oscar has actually met his dad yet. Michael's on a constant IV of coffee to keep him awake. But seriously, I've never seen anyone so cool kind of coming back from having a new baby and just owning all the things in the office. That's an amazing achievement. I couldn't do it, and not many people could. But Michael does have one fatal flaw, and it's his ability to teamwork. You see here, this was a team building day. Here, Go Ape. And if you look very closely, Michael's on the end there. Everyone else is smiling, laughing. Michael, when will this photo be used again? Can I get a hold of it? Look at those eyes. Can I get a hold of this photo before we go? This is supposed to be a team building day, but Jody can tell you, we didn't see Michael all day because Michael's competitive nature came out, and he was miles ahead on the Go 8 course, so we saw him at the end of the photo, where because of our slow nature, he wanted to keep at least a foot away from us. He didn't want to be associated with the slow group, and the picture next to the gorilla. Well, there is another comparison to draw here, which is this. Which I think is a word of warning for everyone. That I think, you know, Michael's going back to the cabinet office, and very soon he will be everyone's boss. Currently practicing and training in the power stance. He's on the way to top. And so, if you want to get in good books, get them drunk tonight. Is what I'd say. But seriously, I think we'll be very lost without you, Michael. So thank you for everything. And I'm sure everyone really admires everything you've done. I certainly admire kind of your commitment to delivery and doing the right things for the department and mission justice. So thanks.
Thank you.
Please do. And we're going for drinks at the colonies right now, so please join us.
Okay, thanks for sticking around. Same time, same place next week. Be good.
Great presentation.
I did want to get Alex to Photoshop it.